Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the jungle. My name is Hamilton Winters. I'm a strategist with Liger Partners. And it's a beautiful day outside. Had to get as close to the router as I could here. Desperate times call for desperate measures. But today I'm so excited to have my friends Rob Platt and his daughter Erin with Habitations LLC in Atlanta. Rob, Erin, how you doing today?
We're doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's a beautiful day outside. It looks like you guys have some fairly decent weather inside too. Y'all making it through the quarantine?
Yeah, we're surviving a day at a time. It's good to be family. So when we're all in business and we're family, quarantine is business. It works out great.
I haven't eaten my child yet, so we're good.
That's good. You did say you drank a little bit of red wine, though.
I did.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Bath night calls for red wine.
Yeah, of course.
We're firm believers. Wine and coffee. Coffee during the day, a little red wine at night.
Of course. You can switch it up when you feel it's appropriate. But why don't we start here? We'll just let you introduce yourself, and you tell us a little bit about you and Habitations, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Effectively, I have been in residential design predominantly for 40 years. I'm in it. I've been doing it long enough where I hope I learned something. Started in Florida, designing subdivisions, things like that, worked for a number of architects. And to make a long story short, moved to Georgia, met a girl, fell in love, it happens. And started a practice here. I had a practice in Florida. For those 40 years, 27 of those years, I was a builder. And predominantly because I was tired of people not building stuff the way I designed it. And so it's a thing. And in 1996, we did a big project for the French government during the Olympics. It was really kind of cool. It was this big, overwhelming renovation of a warehouse we turned into a TV studio in 6 weeks. It was pretty wild. And we had the only live broadcast facility in the Olympics. But what that means is I got bitten by the bug. Renovating this building was just absolutely the most fun I had in my life.
I can imagine.
Oh, it really was. It was super exciting. And after that, I just shifted my whole practice to renovation design. Everybody thought I was out of my mind, said I was going to starve to death. Well, really, it's new construction's the way to go. That's what you should be doing, blah, blah, blah. And I just love saving things or taking something and repurposing it and making it new. We got a saying around here that inside every house is a new house waiting to emerge. And it's true. Well, it really is. People and we're finding more and more, especially since the economic collapse in 2008. I don't know if we can call it a collapse. We bumped our butt pretty hard, so whatever it was, But when the economy bounced, it changed the whole dynamic of the economy. And one of the things that changed was renovation, home renovation. Before, to renovate a house was a more expensive option. And people say, hell with it. They just bulldoze it and start over, which I hate because most people don't realize that 9 out of 10 buildings erected before World War II are gone. 90% of all the buildings built in America before World War II history. That's pathetic. I mean, that's just sad. That's a kind of a picture of the way we are. But this economic turndown, things changed. And suddenly the economy changed. Property values actually went up. People wanted houses that were in neighborhoods that were established and had old growth trees and, kind of like what they grew up in and didn't have, little 4-foot crabapple trees all over the place. But then they started looking at the houses and saying, these various houses, because they were all little, the inner city homes are very expensive and very small, 2-bedroom, 2-bath generally, built in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And they're looking at them going, well, what can we do with this? And because of new materials and a lot of other things, I won't bore you, we can turn a house into anything. And it suddenly is economically very, very wise. And we're getting, quite frankly, your generation, because I'm an old fart. My daughter, she brings youth into the company. What can I say? Look at me for God's sake.
I keep them young.
Yeah, she does. She keeps me young. Yeah, right. Punk. So anyhow, we have a lot of fun. I will tell you this: for the 27 years I was a builder, construction is very hard. It's nasty and it's sweaty. And she actually grew up in this crap. The kid uses a mean power saw. She's good. And she grew up using tools and learning how to do this before she came into architecture. And what you learn is that you just need to be in a good mood all the time, need to laugh all the time, because this stuff is really hard. And the actual doing of it is hard. And so I used to tell my guys in the morning, if you come to work in a good mood, that's a great thing, because, you'll be in a good mood through the day. We'll laugh, we'll cut up. And by the end of the day, when we knock off, you're not going to take all this tension home. If you come to work in a bad mood, by lunch, you'll be unemployed. And they went, oh, they understood. And so with that model, we laugh a lot, and everybody's employed.
I love it. It's that attitude. I can't determine your attitude, and you can't determine mine. You can affect it a little bit, but you can't determine it. And if you can fix it by lunchtime, we'll be here in the afternoon. Otherwise, you need to go take your sack lunch somewhere else. So I totally get it. No, that's great. Let's go back because there was a lot in there that I feel like we need to uncover. So I watched the movie Richard Jewell the other night about the '96 Atlanta Olympic bombing. And so I'm going to date myself a little bit. I was 1 year old when that happened. So I'm quite young. And watching that, I had no recollection of the '96 Olympic bombing, but I do have an understanding of how big of an event that was for the city of Atlanta. What was that project for you like, with building for the French and the biggest event arguably in the world coming to Atlanta, and you getting to be a part of that?
Oh man, it was intense. Briefly, the French wanted to have a live broadcast facility. What that meant was, real quickly, they had what they called the IBC. It was the International Broadcast Center, which was in the Omni. And everybody got a big booth.
Back when the Omni existed.
When the Omni existed. The Omni is gone. You're still, you're too damn young. But back in the day, there was a thing called the Omni. So anyhow, the Omni, they gave all the countries a big booth. It was like 40 feet by 40 feet. And they do green screens around it, and they'd set up a desk, and they'd come in, and it was just really, they could make them very pretty, but everybody looked the same. And the French, being the French, they said, hell with that. They said, we want to see something cool. So they kept running around saying, how can we get a live vista of Atlanta behind our newscasters? And first we experimented. A bunch of builders walked away from it. A lot of contractors walked away from it. Everybody said it couldn't be done. And I had a reputation for doing weird crap, which people said, basically you have a reputation for doing weird crap. And so they came and they said, could you put a modular building on top of a skyscraper at 10th and Juniper? And I said, well, yeah. So we looked at that, because I have a background in modular buildings. Well, that didn't work. We were only going to get a helicopter for a day, because everybody had booked the helicopter. And on your day, if it was raining, you still paid for the helicopter, and you didn't get to use your helicopter.
What a risk.
And so we were shafted, and that's what the French said, something like that. They said it in French. And they basically said, to hell with these. And so they said, no, we're not going to do that. So we thought the whole thing was dead. They popped up a week later, and they had found this old warehouse down on Marietta Street, 3 stories high, wood timber, built in 1917. And they said, Robert, can you put that TV studio on the roof? And I said, yeah, I can do that. So we looked at it, we figured out a way to do it, and we did. We designed it, and we built it in 7 weeks flat. And we had the only live broadcast facility. And we had a panoramic view of Olympic Park behind the broadcasters. And it was just really brilliant. It was exciting, and all the energy that was going on. There were people everywhere, and a lot of corruption.
And it was so hot.
It was so hot. It was god awful hot. I actually lived there. I'd go home every 3 days to shower because people couldn't get near me. But I had to just stay on the job site. We had 42 guys working 24 hours a day, building this thing. It was just really incredible. It was exciting. I bet. And there was a lot of things that went well as far as the Olympics went. There were a lot of things that didn't go well. We wound up, believe it or not, the Secret Service came to us And they were so impressed with where we were and what we had done that the government moved in. The Secret Service paid us to, they actually paid the money to make it a high security building, put in card key entry and all kinds of crap. We did it in like 3 days for that. And the Secret Service operated out of our building because they could see everything. And, but here's the downside. I'll end the story with, we got this all done and I was so excited because I had done this. And I remember a day before the Olympics, the president of France 2 Étoiles, which is Channel 2 and Channel 3, which is their sports network. His name was Gilles Trudeau. And Gilles came, he flew here from France. And we're walking around and all this work's going on. And I said, Gilles, how do you feel? He said, it is very impressive. And I said, well, great. I said, you finally feel comfortable we're going to make it? And he straightened up and he looked around and he said, no.
All right, let's roll.
I felt great, and I was like, no, it ain't gonna work. So, but and then the Secret Service comes in, and I thought, well, this is cool. I'm gonna get some kudos on this one, and I'm gonna be able to watch the Olympics from here. The next day, after we got everything done, they walked in and said, your service has been greatly appreciated. Get out.
No way.
Yeah, they said you're not.
Do not have the security.
You don't have the security clearance. Hit the door, and so I did what any person would do. I got on a plane and I flew to Africa and I stayed there for 6 weeks.
I love it. I love it. That natural reaction. I love it.
That's what everybody did. Just go to Africa, So I hung out in Cape Town and ate seafood, and life was good.
I was just in Cape Town in July. It's an incredible place. I don't. I trust your judgment. Now let's go back. There's a quote, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to butcher it. You mentioned something along the lines of there being a new house in every old house or existing house.
Yeah, there's a new house waiting to emerge.
And I love that, and it makes me think of I think it was Leonardo da Vinci that said that the statue is in the marble. He's just the one that discovers it or uncovers it.
Yeah.
Yep. He doesn't create it. He just uncovers it. And that's what I thought of when you mentioned that. I know so many folks that have either renovated their house or are planning to renovate their house, and watching it go from A to Z and all of the hard work and effort that goes into it from those two steps. We don't get to appreciate that. We don't. You do. Right? We show up for the housewarming party and we see that it's not orange anymore, which is great. But at the end of the day, I didn't watch somebody take the studs out and put new drywall in, and you go deeper than that. What is that experience like to see it from A to Z?
Oh, it's very exciting. And this is kind of interesting because Erin's come into this as a young person. Fortunately, she's grown up in this industry.
And was very anti this industry.
Oh yeah. She wasn't. It's the last thing she'd ever.
That's why I laugh, because when I was an undergrad, I was like, I'm gonna do corporate, and residential is poo poo, and I don't want to do that. And I'm gonna make my own way. And then I went to grad school, and then I worked in corporate, and went, oh my god, this is so boring. And started doing just pickup work with him. And I was like, dang it, I do love this, man. Yeah. That was nearly 5 years ago. So
the thing that's so cool about all this is a house can be anything. And since I was young, in the 1970s, we started having new products. They're called engineered materials. Now they're common as dirt. They're everywhere, but they're reinvented wood products, plywood I-beams and all kinds of stuff. These products allow us to do things we could never do before. Mm-hmm. We can, how many times have you seen people, gee, I wish I could take the wall out between these two rooms. Yep. Well, it takes a hell of a beam. There's a lot of weight up there. I was at a customer's house yesterday, and they want to take this wall out. So I did a quick calculation. I said, well, yeah, we do this. We've got about 5.5 tons of weight coming down on this wall. And they were like, what? I said, yeah, well, that's a lot of weight. With these new materials, we can do that. We can do virtually anything. So literally the sky is the limit now. What the trick is having expertise in renovation retrofit. Designers are not designers. People that do new construction have a particular skill set. Mm-hmm. When you do this, when you do renovation retrofit, especially residential, you have to know houses were built when they were built. In other words, in the they call it 1900. Some houses, people don't realize, effectively did not have a foundation. They literally stacked bricks in a ditch and built on top of just a row of bricks. So it didn't have a true foundation. In the 1920s, we saw an iteration of that. We saw how bricks kind of evolved into a different kind of an early foundation style. In the 1930s, they got very stable. In the 1940s, they got remarkably stable. In the 1950s, they were too stable. They were large. Which is great. So the point is that when we find a house, the first thing we do is we look at how old is it? What is the era? What is the type of construction? Mm-hmm. And because of my 40 years, we know what the house can do, what it will do. We know to avoid, where we can tie in, where we can't tie in, and we can look at people and give them definitive answers, which is what they want. Mm-hmm. So, that's part of it. The other thing that's really cool, at least when I was a builder, is when you get into these old houses, the things that you find. It's incredible. You find old newspapers and attics are stuffed in walls because they use them as insulation. I found headlines of the Hindenburg.
Wow.
The Hindenburg exploding.
Yeah, of course.
You find old whiskey bottles, just all kinds of stuff, that's just really neat. I found Civil War bullets. I've got a collection of Civil War bullets I found in an old house. It
sounds like American Pickers.
Yeah, really. Well, you just kind of stumble across this stuff. It's incredible.
That's amazing. I'll tell you a short story, and it's short because this is your podcast. My grandfather grew up in Tuskegee, Alabama, and he passed away. But the city of Tuskegee is just beautiful architecture down some of these streets. I had never been to the house that he grew up in, and I was on my way to visit him in New Orleans. And I decided I was going to pull off in Tuskegee and visit the house that he grew up in. I didn't know what house I was looking for. All I knew was what street he lived on, and that my dad remembered the smell of the bushes outside. And so I pull up to this house that looks familiar, and I get out of my car, and I look a little strange driving down the road in Tuskegee for obvious reasons. And I walk up to the door and knock, and this black lady answers the door, and she's like, "Can I help you?" I said, "I think my grandfather grew up in this house." And she said, "Is your grandfather Dr. Winters?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Come on in." Showed me the entire house. And I said, "Wait, do you have pecan trees in the back?" She said, "Yeah." "How'd you know that?" I said, "Did you know that George Washington Carver ate dinner in your house once a week with my great-grandfather?" I have a picture of my great-grandfather and George Washington Carver in the back with a pecan tree blown down, and he's sticking a rod in the ground saying, "Hey, you got a bedrock under here. The root system had to grow out instead of down." And she said, "Oh, I'll show you all sorts of stuff that your great-grandfather's seen." Showed me how the bricks were laid in the way that only that mason had laid bricks. I mean, I'd never been super interested in what you do before that day, but hearing you talk about it, I'm like, man, this must be one of the greatest jobs in the world.
It's exciting. It really is. One thing we like about it more than anything is, everybody has dark days. I mean, you have a day that just sucks. And if your life is moving paper from an inbox to an outbox, I want to go play in traffic. But when we have a bad day, you can go out and you can drive down the street and say, "I did that." And there's a family inside and they're enjoying their life in an environment that you created for them. I mean,
or even just you're asking about the process and Dad's talking about how lovely it is after the fact to be able to see these spaces. But even in the process, I had a client right before quarantine started,
back in the old
before
days.
the world set on fire. And, she actually works for the CDC, and she was very stressed out, and she was stressed out about the process. And I helped her drill down on some details because we do kitchen design as well. So I had done a kitchen design for her, and we were picking out cabinetry and stuff. And finally at the end, I mean, she's practically in tears hugging me. And she was just like, "Thank you so much for this. Like, it's fun again." And then she was like, "I'm not done with you. I don't want to be done with you." I was like, "It's cool. Yeah. We've still got more to go."
That's good.
But it's that even in the process, because if you don't do this every day, it's a very, very overwhelming process because people don't realize how many decisions they have to make, and they get decision fatigue pretty early on.
Oh yeah.
So being able to kind of right that ship for them and get them in touch with how they're making this home theirs, like they're creating their oasis in this world, and getting them back in touch with having fun with it is half the joy.
I love that. Anybody can buy a house, but I think few people can make a home. And it seems like what you guys do for people is you make a home out of a house.
Yeah.
I'm not a homeowner yet. I'm a renter. I'm in the process of trying to get there. You get there kind of towards your late 20s usually. But seeing all of the renovations that are going on in Atlanta, it just seems like there's a lot of excitement going on and people wanting to renovate their houses. Is that a trend that you're seeing, especially with my generation of, I want to find something that's at a good price point in a cute neighborhood and really renovate it instead of go buy some house that will never really feel like a home?
There's a handful of things going on. One is, yes, like I said, starting in the collapse in 2008. Since then, renovation has become mainstream. It's become a very common deal, and we've got more and more renovation builders out there that know what the hell they're doing. Now, a bunch of them don't. That's scary. We do have a shortage of designers that are skilled at renovation design, so that's good for us. Because I am capitalist.
We're not mercenary.
No. Well, hell,
my baby's gonna want to go to college one day.
Yeah, I mean, all this crap is exciting, but you got to eat because it's a bitch. I mean, this is an art, and you got to earn a living at it. And earning a living at art is not easy. It's a lot easier when you can do something. And I'd love to. No, I wouldn't really, but
you wouldn't do anything else.
No, you can't do anything else. Once you do this, you're pretty well screwed. So
it's an addiction.
It really is. But we have seen a trend. You are young, but your generation and the span between you and her, you guys, the generation that's coming in now is, and this is what I'm excited about. You guys are more aware of the environment. You're more aware of the need to recycle. And I think renovation is the absolute purest form of recycling possible. You're keeping, even if you just save the foundation system, you're keeping tons of things out of the landfill. You're minimizing the impact on the environment. There's just so many things you're doing positive.
And from a, hippie emotional place, because that's me. Hi guys.
Totally.
You're retaining that sweat equity that somebody put into this place. You're that mason that built that. You can't recreate that sweat equity. You can't take away that experience that lives in the bones of that house.
Yeah, there was a time when, now you hear, if you go on a job site, you hear nail guns, bam, 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 bam.
Of course.
Back in the day, there were no nail guns. So every nail, and nails were expensive. Nails were very expensive. Until Sears invented the wire nail. Nails were expensive. They were all made. And so if a carpenter dropped a nail, hell, he picked it up. He sent his helper, go down, pick up that nail, because they were expensive. And they would place that nail, they would drive that nail. There was thought in every single thing they did. You know what I mean? And you feel it when you're in these houses. You feel it when you go in a house that's 80 or 100 years old, and history, and it's solid. It's impressive. Yep. Or when you get up in the attic and you see some of these joints, how they're put together, and they're still tight.
And they were hand
sawn by some person that had upper arms that looked like my thighs. Seriously, oh yeah, just impressive stuff. And so that's the exciting thing. So we're finding this younger generation, and it's infectious. You're moving into the 40 somethings and the 50 somethings. They're seeing the value because in Atlanta, and forgive me a second, he
interrupts me all the time. I
own the joint. What can I say? When you buy a dump, and I'm sorry, some of them are. When you buy a dump for $350,000, and that's where you're starting, the renovation means a lot. It's,
Absolutely.
it's a significant investment. So we're looking at young people, and I don't know how the hell you guys do it, but we're seeing people drop, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on top of their $350,000 investment.
Yeah.
Because they've got choices. And of course, we're seeing professional careers are allowing this to happen and whatnot. But it is a lifestyle choice. Do I have a significant mortgage and a house in the city, or do I commute 3 hours a day?
Well, and that's what I was going to say before you so rudely interrupted.
It's my gift.
In addition to there being a shift in priorities, such as, retaining those materials and trying to recycle and that sort of thing, there's also been a shift in priorities with quality of life. Previously, with the generation before me, my parents, it was, they didn't mind driving an hour one-way commute because they didn't want to live in the city. It was, living in the suburb was the American dream. Mm-hmm. Whereas now you see that our generation is saying, you know what, I'm missing time with my kids, or I'm missing time with my spouse, or I'm missing time with my friends, or my video games, or whatever your priority is. I don't want to miss that time when I get off of work, sitting in a car in traffic for an hour, an hour and a half. So I would rather buy a small house inside the perimeter and pay more for that and renovate it to make it the house that I want than buy a house that's larger, ready-made, but I have to commute to it out in the suburbs. And all of those houses that people are buying in town, those were technically starter houses way back when. So that's why they're small. They're 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. And once you get people that are purchasing houses, 9 times out of 10, they're married, they're wanting to start a family, or they already have a family. So the only thing available to them is to buy this starter home, but it's not big enough. So to get what they want, they have to renovate.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Sir?
It's that return to village concept.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is. I mean, I grew up in a wildlife sanctuary, honest to God. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, out in the woods. I rode a motorcycle or a horse to get where I was going. Now I live in the city, and I love it because my wife and I, we like being near the symphony and museums. And you may have noticed I like to eat, and because I'm not a thin guy. And I like to cook, and we like the trappings of the city and the culture and the accessibility of everything. Hell, I spent 27 years in the woods. I was done with that. So and I got to tell you, we're a very colorful family. So keeping this PG is really.
You've done a good job. You've done a good job.
So we are doing the best we can. We keep waiting for something to slip out that the poor Isaac is going to have to.
No traffic words allowed.
Yeah. No. Yes, we call them traffic words.
That's hilarious.
But where we are now is, okay, now we've got this culture where people, they see the value of buying homes. They see the value of renovating homes. Now they don't have a damn clue where to start. They are at a loss, and they have been. This is our big deal. We feel like there's a lot of misdirection, and it's unfortunate. Capitalism's a good thing. Wow, that's great. Well, and I'll say I'm a flaming liberal. Just get it out there. So there's gonna be a lot of people say, "Oh, up yours," and they're not going to talk to him anymore. But yes, I'm a tree hugger. It's true. And honestly, because of what we do, we saw the people that work in blue collar and construction. These are good people. This is just really cool stuff. But when we get out there, we've got the retail market is driving people's decision process, and that's bad.
Well, marketing has gotten so very good that everyone is able to convince people that they're the best place to start, even if they aren't, just because they want to have control over their bit.
And this is where we're going with, we're starting a podcast. We feel like we need to get a message out there because, for example, people have been taught if you want to do a renovation project, you go find a builder, and everybody's calling up 28 builders. Well, one builder comes into your house, And you walk through and you talk to them. We want to do this. We want to do a master suite. We want to expand the kitchen and blah, blah, blah. And then the person looks at him and says, okay, that's great. This is how much it's going to cost. How they do that, I don't know, because they don't have a friggin' clue. There's, they don't have a plan.
They don't know what it's framed with. They don't know if
But a
they've got
builder
to make
will throw a number
modifications to
out
the
there.
foundation.
Yeah, a builder will throw a number out there and they'll go, oh, okay, great. Then the next person comes at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and they tell them everything they told the first person, except they go, oh, by the way, and I also want to add a laundry room over here and this and that. What just happened was the first guy is going to be cheaper because he didn't know. And the number they remember is the number this guy threw out that he pulled right out of his ear or her ear, because it's an equal opportunity crap show. So, and it is. And so what we're trying to get the word out to people is you don't go to a builder first. You lose control. You need to come to a designer. You need to sit down. You need to map out what can be done on a much reduced budget. We operate
and go through all of the potential options, because a lot of times people think they know what they want, and then they see a design and they go, oh, no, that doesn't flow like I wanted to, or whatever. So it gives them an opportunity to change things and to see all of the options at a much less expensive process, because doing it on paper versus changing your mind in construction are two very different things.
However, when we're done, you have a plan. You have a set of documents that say, this is precisely what I want to do. You give that to 3 builders. Now you're getting back 3 comparative quotes. Now you can actually determine which is the better builder. And you may find out, we have builders that look at the plans. Honest to God, I can tell you stories. We've had builders look at plans and say, quote, damn, that's a lot of words. Now, that is not a good thing to hear from your builder.
That's not a good sign.
No.
Yeah, so we've got builders that are not, you got builders, what do you call a guy that graduates from the bottom of his class in medical school? Doctor. So, just because you have a contractor's license doesn't mean you're a qualified contractor. You with me? So, in the end, you put out a set of documents and you find out you're able to evaluate, especially working with us, because we will help. Is this person qualified? Can you vet them properly? Are they bidding on the set of documents appropriately so that you've got real apples to apples comparisons? And it gives you more control when you go to your lender, and you can control costs, because your lender's going to look at it and say, they have architects on staff that will look at the plans and say, aha, and they know what they're lending against. So you're going to get a better rate. Everything is better
informed. Everybody's better informed.
Everybody's better informed. And, I could prattle on for another hour, but you don't have time.
That's okay. Well, and as we wrap up, because you mentioned your podcast, throw out the name of it and where they can find it and how they can get in touch with you to continue the conversation. Because I know there are some people that are watching that are either thinking about renovating, or when they do, will think of you guys and they need to know a call to action here.
Well, and thank you.
That's good.
There's 2 sides of the company. There's the design side, which is our studio. And I think it's on the screen there. It's Habitations LLC. And they can go to our website to see who we are. Do we actually know what the hell we're talking about? Have we ever done this before? That's a good place to figure it out.
And that website is habitationsllc.com.
Habitationsllc.com. It's got pretty pictures, and it shows what we do.
And it's got our bios and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, and yada, yada, yada. And just remember, as good as she is, it's all because of genetics. And
yes, my mother was fantastic.
I bet she was.
At any rate, then the other site, and we have not launched the podcast. We're ready to, though. The site is up. It's called The Nuhaus, Nuhaus, the Nuhausproject.com. And we call it the Nuhaus Project.
I love it.
And it's all based on a little character that looks a lot like me, and we call him Professor Nuhaus. And we are going to do a weekly podcast to talk to homeowners about all of the things they should know so they can make informed decisions.
And I mentioned, how marketing has gotten so good. The point of the podcast is to educate them, not to bring them to us necessarily. If they find a designer that's a better fit for them, that's where we want them to go. We're not selling them anything, and that's why we're not doing it under the Habitations masthead, because we don't want them to feel like they're beholden to us. It's purely for education so that we can help right some of the wrongs that we feel have happened in the industry.
Now, if by some chance they are drawn to our witticisms and our
delightful disposition,
absolutely, then
colorful character.
Yes. Who are we to turn away business? We would never do that. But the Nuhaus Project, one thing that you'll see is we are not accepting any retail sponsors because we think it will taint the message. The whole idea is the 30-minute podcast. It's broken into 3 parts, and effectively the idea is to talk about the renovation process and give people a place to go and some comfort. We want to talk about technology because there's some brilliant technology out there. You know, people say, what about tankless water heaters? What about solar? What about this? What about that? We can talk to them. And then the third part is we actually go out and we film actual projects in work so they can see these things happening.
They can see the realistic process, not just, hey, we acquired this house. Oh, look at the renovation when it's done. They can see why it takes as long as it does, why you need permits and all of that fun stuff in the middle.
So it's the whole idea is to reach out to consumers, give them control back, let them realize that the designer is their advocate and their guide. And if they can pick up on that, we will help get them to a better place with a lot, without Maalox.
Yeah.
Really. Maalox is a big part of renovation. Maalox and alcohol.
I understand.
Yeah, we try to work on that. Construction is the leading cause of drug abuse in America. It's true.
That's amazing. Well, this has been great. And we're big proponents of teaching rather than telling. Anybody in marketing can tell you. It takes somebody that's willing to do what you guys are doing, which is not trying to solicit business. We're trying to teach you about what we do so that we can put the power back in your hands. And that's what we've done here today. I'd love the chance to work with you in any shape, form, or fashion in the future. You guys have been great this morning. Thank you for everything that you've given to us and the opportunity for us to showcase you on our show. Robert Platt and his daughter Erin with Habitations LLC. We look forward to catching everybody next time. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time in the jungle. Bye-bye.